Talked earlier about how the carnivore diet is decisively, at least encouraged by women. And I stand by that, but I also want to draw the parallel between the carnivore diet and uh, feminism or female supremacy. Uh, the issue of veganism and MGTOW are integrally connected, is what I'm getting at here. Uh, and it comes from the same place ultimately. Male uh, or sort of spirituality itself, which is masculine, has everything to do with a sense of justice and honor and compassion, understanding. These traits are male, and uh, it's it doesn't, you don't have to look very far into the MGTOW community. Um, Real MGTOWs, not fake MGTOWs. I'm talking about real MGTOWs, and you'll meet a ton of men who just care for other men, whether or not they know them. They're just kind, and it comes from sort of a place of, I mean, there is a sense of self-interest here. Um, when you recognize that men are maligned and treated poorly, systemically, you understand that you're a target. And so, this entire way of being, that this entire understanding that is MGTOW comes from the ability to notice that there are other people who are suffering like you, under a system that wants to suppress and defeat you and give undue privilege to the lesser of the species, so to speak. And what I mean by lesser, I mean less spiritual, um, which is women. They are carnal and base and materialistic, and and the worst of men are that way, and the best of women are not. Uh, so, what does that have to do with veganism? Well, the this there's a mental uh, exercise or assignment. There's a mental, yeah, that's an exercise. It's a mental exercise that uh, they have you do. Well, they had me do in political philosophy, and I think that in most political philosophy classes they have you do this, and it's where you basically say, um, let's imagine that your consciousness is sort of ripped out of your um, body, and everyone is mixed up and thrown into a random person's body. Now, you can discover who. No, and the idea is that you have to imagine this is actually happening to you, and and that it's a real thing, and then when you do that, you have to ask yourself, who would you least like to end up as, and who has it pretty good, um, and that can help you figure out how society should be organized. Somewhat is, for example, if you're would you like to randomly be thrown into a gay person's body in the Middle East, And of course the answer is no, and then to organize a society from that point, Well, shouldn't we make it more fair to a gay person? You know, that if you're actually concerned with being just and compassionate, you know, um, just as an example, it's just an example. Um, but the this is exactly what every MGTOW has already done, because we've found that as men in society, uh, at least in America, you're the deal you got isn't a good one. It's you got the short end of the stick here, and so uh, it's really easy to do that experiment without even wanting to, because you've noticed that you're in one of those positions that uh, isn't so great. And so, and MGTOW is completely logical, it's rational, and it's unapologetically uh, so. Now, the only issue separating MGTOW from veganism in particular is that when doing that exercise, you're like in political philosophy, you're just um, doing people. But if you actually extend that to, well, imagine your consciousness is ripped away, and then you can go into animals too. You know, suddenly when you do that, here's how you know anyone with a good sense of justice and compassion can begin to conceptualize this. If you open yourself up to animals, there is over I think it's over 100 billion animals a year um, go through sort of a torturous slaughterhouse experience after a terrible life, basically being a slave. Uh, and the so when you understand there are 7 billion people on the planet, or 7.5 billion, and that and we go through like a fucking meat grinder 100 billion animals a year, you know, literally a meat grinder, literally a meat grinder. We exhaust that many animals, uh, softly put. uh, you understand, if your consciousness is ripped out and thrown randomly into either humans or animals, you've massively increased your chances of having a terrible experience. And that's meaningful. Uh, Now, as a MGTOW, it's easy to relate and understand with men who've been victimized by the system and ultimately by female nature, uh, and put repeatedly into positions that are that put your back against the wall and make your life miserable. Now, all you need do from this position, after recognizing just how awful female nature is to recognize how awful uh, factory farming nature is, the nature of the farming process. If you can make that connection, and I guess in this way, human nature to animals in the modern context, um, and then you'll begin to understand how veganism kind of makes a good deal of sense within the context of MGTOW, because we're just extending our moral community to include animals for no arbitrary reason. It's because we can recognize that there's mass suffering and there's reasons. uh, to bring it back to sort of what I was talking about with female nature, it's these are also connected because the carnivore diet uh, is it's beta strategy. It's exactly the kind of thing that you'd expect uh, from people who, on a subconscious level, are trying to impress women, because women aren't overly impressed by the carnivore diet. They're overly impressed because it's a terrible idea. It's just generally bad uh, idea. And women spiritually love to convince you to be uh, morally degenerate, because that's the, and I had mentioned this earlier, but I'll say it again. The ultimate imperative for women with respect to men here, and this is why veganism and MGTOW is so integral. The ultimate imperative um, for women is to morally corrupt men and convince them to be less just, less compassionate to everything, to other men, to other women, because they hate their competition and they have no good sense, and to animals, because what a woman, because they want to eat meat and they don't want to have the responsibility of killing it. And they also need men to be less just and less compassionate, because if they can convince you to be a worse person, to sacrifice your sense of justice on the altar of pussy, then they can turn you into anything they want. They can make you do anything they want. You are a puppet from that point. You have lost all integrity as a man, and and that's exactly what the carnivore diet is. It's you're and the reason that's the case is because uh, there's no good reason to restrict your diet to exclusively products of exploitation and harm. And I know that that's kind of triggering for some people, but that's what it is. You know, it's without that, that's the carnivore diet. Without exception, you've restricted your diet to products of exploitation and harm, without exception. And that's what really, really, really is the proof in the pudding here. And it's done for no good reason. We don't there's no, we don't have any rational reason to take this path. So uh, again, this carnivore diet is moral weakness. It's moral degeneracy. It's spiritually degenerate, and it's a metaphysical form of supplication. It's a metaphysical form of supplication. It's the perfect acceptance of psychopathy, which is precisely what it means to pussymander. That is pussymandering. I mean, it is a metaphysical pussymandering. And these guys doing it, that they are acting like it's a diet choice. It's not a fucking diet choice. It's not a fucking diet. There's no good reason to do it. It's a phenomena. It's a psychopathic pussymandering phenomena. It's perfect supplication to women. And that's what it will always be. And there will never be any good reason to do it. We have every reason not to do this. But unfortunately, there aren't actually that many men who have integrity. There aren't that many men who have the moral character to choose better. I mean, even if you're not vegan, this is a bad idea. Even if you're not vegan, you can, most sensible people will recognize, yeah, taking dark leafy greens intentionally out of my diet is a bad idea. Most people can see that. Um, Nothing is more obvious. So, yeah, I just wanted to make this video, and I get also just, I guess I brought this up earlier, you know, I've been feeling like I got lost in a relationship for a while, and my sense of MGTOW has begun to return, and I feel a lot better. I spiritually, I feel just with, I don't know, it's a mix of meditation, veganism, ketosis, and my sense of MGTOW is returning. I feel like a very complete man, and I have a sense of excitability. I feel happy and excited to be alive and exist, and be figuring out even more about life. I guess just really quick, this is coconut cream. I call it keto vegan fuel. If you look, you can see, let me try to get this in focus here. I don't know, it's kind of hard to read, for fuck's sake. Anyway, if you can't see, there's 5 servings in here with 190 calories, and 170 of those calories are from fat. It has a carbohydrate content of 3 grams per serving, 2 sugars, 1 protein. The fat is 19. So, in other words, this is very keto friendly. In fact, you can basically just, it is the primary source of my food. So if you're, well, and here's the other thing. This is what I figured out. I threw some probiotic in, and then I was like, I'm gonna make yogurt or whatever, and it started to turn into yogurt, and I was like, okay. So now I have this super high fat probiotic coconut yogurt, and I'm like, this tastes okay, but I let it sit in my fridge for a long time. It just kept getting more and more probiotic, right? You know, I finally took it out, and I'm like, it was as thick as Greek yogurt, and I'm like, okay, apparently I made kind of Greek yogurt out of this. But here's the weird fucking thing about it. It tasted like sour cream, exactly like non-vegan sour cream. I don't know why. And I was told that if I do a certain kind of thing, I can make it taste like cream cheese. So I'm literally gonna make one of my dinners cheesecake. Like maybe I'll have cheesecake for dinner like once once a week or something. But you can do a ton of things. Obviously, tastes like sour cream. I could maybe make like a I could do onion dip. I could make like tacos or something. But yeah, you know, I'm just experimenting with keto vegan and moving that forward with how better I can serve my life. I bought my creatine, um, so I got my creatine. Yeah, just bought some tea, some oolong tea that I can make. I got a cool little ball that you put the tea in and brew it. This is kind of probably junk food, but it's seaweed. I mean, it's healthy. Other than that, it's just filled with oil. I'm sure, just a lot of oil. It was delicious. I ate it with a fucking fork. Uh, Really great. But yeah, I'm trying to consume seaweed. I was reading online that seaweed has some important anti-aging effects. Good for your skin. I think there's a high selenium content in it as well. Uh, yeah. So I just wanted to make this video and um, just show that there's a connection between veganism and MGTOW, and that I feel like it's an important connection that I'm seeing. Like I feel like I'm just like right on kind of the edge of finding something important, some fundamentally important true thing about experience uh, as a human or in general. So yeah, um, MGTOW, veganism.